Arthur Weasley is the best Weasley World dad we know. He's so loved and respected by so many of us. A testament to his fantastic fathering that he managed to align his likeness to no fewer than 7 siblings. So in this video, I'm going to explain Arthur Weasley's life, starting with his birth and all the way to the end of the series. Before we get started, I just want to tell you that 98% of my viewers are not subscribed, so if you enjoy my content, please do me a favor and subscribe. It would be very much appreciated. Now let's get to the video. Arthur Weasley was born on 6 February 1950 to Septimus and Cedrilla Weasley, and he had 2 brothers. Like many other members of the Weasley family, Arthur had bright red hair. Arthur in the films, however, is shown without glasses and is not balding as is described in the books. His hair in fact appears to lengthen as the film series progresses. His mother was disowned for marrying a blood traitor, as her family believed strongly in the notion of pure blood supremacy. It is possible that his father's point of view made Arthur realize that there was no difference between wizards and muggles. At the age of 11, he attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft in Weasley in 1961 and was sorted into Gryffindor House. In his 3rd year, he had chosen to take Muggle studies due to his interest in Muggles. While at school, he met and began dating fellow Gryffindor Molly Prewett. Arthur got caught out of bed by the school caretaker, Apollyon Pringle, after he and Molly went for a nighttime stroll one evening and was hardly punished. Shortly after graduating from Hogwarts, Arthur and Molly married. Their marriage was rather rushed, as Lord Voldemort was gaining power during that time, and the First Weasley War began. It's all this uncertainty with you-know-who coming back. People think they might be dead tomorrow, so they're rushing all sorts of decisions they normally take time over, including you and Dad. Arthur was not a member of the First Order of Phoenix. It is unknown if he was otherwise involved in the war. During the course of the war, he and Molly had 7 children: Bill, Charlie, Percy, twins Fred and George, Ron, and Ginny, the first daughter to be born into the Weasley family in generations. The war ended soon after Ginny's birth, but not before Arthur's brothers-in-law, Fabian and Gideon Prewett, both older members, were killed by Death Eaters. Arthur was upset when some Death Eaters, such as Lucius Malfoy, were able to escape punishment by claiming that they have been under the Imperius Curse. Arthur believed that they were lying, and he and Lucius were hostile towards one another whenever they crossed paths. Arthur gained employment in the Misses of Muggle Artifacts office at the Ministry of Magic. Arthur was known at work for being a well-meaning, reasonable and competent everyman, trying to take care of his family and do the right thing. He also portrayed a Muggle car, a fond Anglia, and bewitched it to make it fly. The car was part of Arthur's substantial personal collection of Muggle artifacts, which he kept in a shed and included blocks and batteries. In 1992, Ron, Fred and George borrowed their father's car to rescue Harry Potter from Private Drive after not receiving letters from him all the summer. When Arthur returned to the battle after a night of ministry raids, he was pleased to find out that the car could indeed fly. That was until he caught his wife's eye. He then poorly reprimanded the boys for doing so. Arthur's sense of humor was similar to Fred and George's. He loved them very much, and although they were not model students, Arthur knew they were very clever wizards, though not as strict towards their mischievous behavior. A few rare exceptions are when they attempted an unbreakable vow with Ron in the earlier years. A few days later, the family as well as Harry went to Diagon Alley to purchase school supplies for the upcoming year. While there, they visited Flourish and Bloods, where Gilderoy Lockhart was having a book signing event, during which Arthur got into a fight with Lucius Malfoy over Arthur's support for Muggles.
We have a very different idea about what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy. Clearly.
He was very excited to meet Hermione Granger's parents, both Muggle dentists, insisting on taking them out for a drink. When Harry and Ron were prevented from getting on platform 9 3/4, the two borrowed the Ford Anglia to fly to Hogwarts, as there was a serious potential breach of the statutes of secrecy. Mr. Weasley faced an inquiry at work over the incident. In the spring of 1993, Arthur and Molly were called to Hogwarts when it was learned that the monster of Slytherin had taken their daughter Ginny into the Chamber of Secrets. It turned out that Lucius Malfoy had planted an old-school diary of Tom Riddle's on Ginny, which thereafter possessed her and forced her to open the chamber. Ginny was nearly killed, but was saved by Harry and her brother Ron. Arthur won some money in a daily profit drawing, and he and his family traveled to Egypt to visit his son Bill. In the same year, Sirius Black had escaped from Azkaban and was believed to be seeking Harry's death. Arthur wanted to tell Harry the truth. He discussed the matter with his wife in secret, not wanting Harry to panic. Harry, however, overheard their conversation. On platform 9 3/4, Arthur and Harry briefly discussed what Harry had heard. While pleased that Harry was not scared, Arthur told Harry to not go seeking black. In the summer of 1984, Arthur managed to get himself and his family, as well as Harry and Hermione, tickets for the Quidditch World Cup from Lodo Bagman because Arthur had helped Lodo's brother out of a minor scrape. Arthur was among the Weasleys who brought Harry from the Dursleys by the Flow Network. While there, he expressed his fascination at various Muggle artifacts in the Dursleys' house. The group sat in the top box, where they were confronted by the Malfoys, who were there by a personal invitation from the Minister himself, though both Arthur and Lucius were able to restrain themselves out of respect for Fudge. A little while after the Weasleys, along with Harry and Hermione, had returned to their tents, a group of masked Death Eaters began storming the campsite, jinking the campsite manager's family and anything or anyone that got in their way. Arthur, along with Percy, Charlie and Bill, went out to fight them. Before he left, he told the others to seek refuge in the woods and that he would find him when it's safe. Upon seeing the dark mark in the sky, Arthur along with the other ministry officials apparated at once to the location from where the mark had been cast, and they immediately sent out stunning spells. Before realizing it was Harry, Ron and Hermione standing in the clearing, he dismissed the possibility that they would have cast the spell, even if they have known how to. After looking in the bushes in the direction that the Stanners had gone, they found Crouch's house elf Winky unconscious and on the ground. Next to her was Harry's wand that he lost sometime during the Quidditch match. Arthur refused to believe that either Harry or Winky could have been the ones to do it, and that someone else must have been responsible. After the event, Arthur was upset when he was shown a scathing article written by Rita Skeeter in the Daily Prophet, which harshly criticized the failure of ministry officials to prevent the disturbance from happening, which even indirectly mentioned himself. In 1995, Arthur learned about the return of Lord Voldemort and joined the Second Order of Phoenix. He did this in preparation of the upcoming war. A week into the summer holiday, Arthur got into an intense argument with his son Percy. Percy had recently been promoted to junior assistant to the minister, working directly for Cornelius Fudge. Percy had hoped his family would be pleased, but Arthur suspected it was a move by the ministry to put a spy in the Weasley family. Percy started to insult his father, claiming that ever since he started at the ministry, he had to struggle against Arthur's reputation. He stated that Arthur had no ambition and had no desire for advancement. Percy continued by saying that Arthur was an idiot to align himself with Albus Dumbledore and Harry Potter, as he did not believe their statement that the Dark Lord had returned. Percy's own loyalty lay with the Ministry of Magic. Percy soon moved out and found a flat in central London and did not speak to his family for a long time. When Harry broke the international state of secrecy by defending himself and his cousin Dudley against two Dementors, Arthur accompanied Harry to the Ministry of Magic. For his disciplinary hearing, he was not allowed in with Harry while the trial was in session and waited for him outside the courtroom. One night while guarding the Hall of Prophecies for the Order of Phoenix, Arthur was attacked by Voldemort's Snake Nagini. The attack was witnessed by Harry, through his mental connection with the Dark Lord. Because of Harry witnessed the event and alerting Dumbledore to it, Arthur survived the attack, and hence he was transported to St. Mungo's Hospital in time, and he was critically injured. Arthur was originally intended to die in the 5th book, particularly when Nagini attacked him, but J.K. Rowling decided against it because he was one of the few good fathers in the series, and because she did not want to turn Ron into a half Harry by losing one of his parents. Arthur was required to take a blood replenishing potion every hour. At the suggestion of the healer in hospital, he tried Muggle's treatment, but Molly did not accept it. Eventually, an antidote to the poison was found, and he was cured. He finally came back home with his family to Grimmauld Place, feeling good and healthy.
Mr. Harry Potter, without whom I would not be here.
Despite this near-death experience, Percy did not so much as question about his father's well-being, which upset Arthur and the rest of the family. After the ministry finally accepted the truth that Lord Voldemort had indeed returned to power, Arthur was promoted to the head of the office for the detection of defensive spells and protective objects. He had no less than 10 people working under him. However, this promotion by Rufius Scrimgeour might have been a successful way of trying to warm Harry up to the ministry, given the time frame of events that took place. Scrimgeour, who knew that Harry was close to the Weasley family, might have then decided to promote Arthur so that Harry would possibly be more open to joining the ministry. Molly did say the Arthur promotion had been within days of Harry's arrival at the Barrow. The Barrow also became the home of his son Bill's new fiancée, Fleur Delacour. During this time, Arthur did sometimes bring home news of odd accidents or disappearances. One of these disappearances was of Garrick Ollivander. He brought home the news before he even reached the Daily Prophet. Arthur later accompanied several of his family members, as well as Harry and Hermione, to Diagon Alley under the ministry protection of Rubeus Hagrid. Harry later spoke to Arthur about suspecting Draco Malfoy of joining the Death Eaters and having purchased a dark artifact from Borgin and Burkes to probably use at Hogwarts. Arthur once more personally searched Malfoy Manor for any possible dark objects, to no avail. Harry, Ron and Ginny spent Christmas at the Barrow, where Harry tried to persuade Arthur and Remus Lupin that there were indeed something dark about Draco Malfoy. His argument went unheard, as neither believed his theory regarding him. The Minister of Magic Rufius Scrimgeour also arrived at the Barrow with Arthur's son Percy. Molly was overjoyed to see Percy, while Arthur and twins remained stone-faced. Percy showed no sign of wanting to greet any of the rest of the family. He stood poker straight and awkward looking and stared over everybody else's heads. When the minister announced his intention to speak to Harry alone, Arthur prepared to speak, but Harry dismissed him, stating that he was fine. Scrimgeour attempted to recruit Harry with little success, while Percy once again fell out with his family. Harry's suspicions about Draco Malfoy were later proved to be true. He helped Death Eaters to get into Hogwarts, and Dumbledore was killed by Severus Snape. Arthur and Molly later arrived at Hogwarts shortly after the battle of the Astronomy Tower to see their son Bill, who was gravely injured by Fenrir Greyback during the conflict. The Weasley family sadly attended the funeral of Dumbledore, a man they respected greatly and who had led them as the head of the Order of Phoenix. During the summer holidays, Arthur participated in the plan to evacuate Harry from the home of his aunt and uncle before his 17th birthday. This was done due to Harry needing more protection from Voldemort and his Death Eaters, along with the protection of having a place to call home being broken on his 17th birthday. Unfortunately, a number of Death Eaters embraced the Order members and the Battle of Seven Portals ensued. Alastor Moody was murdered by Voldemort himself in the conflict, and Harry's owl Hedwig was killed by a known Death Eater, while Arthur's son George lost an ear at the hands of Severus Snape. Arthur hurried to his son to make sure he's okay. "I'll prove who I am, Kingsley, after I've seen my son. Now back off if you know what's good for you." Arthur was fascinated at how Muggles were able to go about their lives without magic. He also collected a number of other Muggle items. Arthur showed Harry the remains of Sirius' motorcycle and told him he was eager to learn how the bricks worked, and that he also wanted to put it back together when Molly was not around. During the wedding of Bill and Fleur, Kingsley Shacklebolt's Patronus arrived informing the guests that the Ministry of Magic had fallen to Voldemort and his Death Eaters. The current Minister of Magic Scrimgeour was tortured and murdered. Death Eaters then interrupted their reception, and the Weasley family was placed under constant watch. Harry, Ron and Hermione, however, escaped to 12 Grimmauld Place after they arrived. Arthur's Patronus appeared and informed them that the rest of the family was safe, but warned them not to attempt contact, as that might cause problems. When Harry, Hermione and Ron inflated the Ministry of Magic, Harry saw Arthur again. While discussed as Albert Raincon by use of Polyjuice Potion, he found out that Arthur was under surveillance by Voldemort's controlled ministry for his blood traitor status. Arthur also had a file at the ministry regarding his blood status, his family status, and his status in the ministry. The file was kept in Dolores Umbridge's office. Harry tried to warn Arthur that his movements were being watched by the ministry, but Arthur thought he was trying to threaten him. In May 1998, Arthur arrived at the school to take part in the Battle of Hogwarts. His son Percy arrived just in time to apologize to his family and express his wish to take part in the fight against Voldemort's encroaching army. Arthur and Percy reconciled, and all the Weasleys took part in the battle. Arthur witnessed his wife Molly killing Bellatrix Lestrange in the Great Hall, and Harry defeated Voldemort once and for all. But the victory was destroyed by the death of his son Fred. It was so heartbreaking to Arthur, which devastated him, his wife, and the rest of the children, as well as Harry and Hermione. His body was later moved to the Great Hall, where family and friends then mourned over him. In the years after Voldemort's death, Arthur's family grew even larger, with most of his children marrying and having children of their own. He appeared to have at least 12 grandchildren. A devoted father Arthur was, while more laid-back parents than his wife. He was nevertheless very protective of them, and loved his own flesh and blood so much that the only times he was seen to lose control of himself was when any of his children was hurt. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and see you again in the next video.